Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one.
Tristan,
yes, you have a crazy thing you want to tell me about.
I have a thing I want to tell you about, and I want everyone to remember that we record this podcast months in advance sometimes.
Yeah, it's January 20th, 2026 for reference.
So this is a thing that's like just currently happening in my world anyway, and I want to tell you about it because it feels like something we would cover on this show. And this is not the episode of today, but it is just so fun and so nonsense that I need to tell you about Candace Owens. Are you familiar with Candace Owens?
I'll try to tell you what I know, and then you can pick up from there. So she was Daily Wire. So she was part of the Ben Shapiro network, where she did Ben Shapiro type stuff, like basically just getting conservatives all riled up.
Yeah.
But then she was like, when Kanye West decided to go Hitler mode on everybody, she was like one of his defenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was really like I think that she was like anti the Israel invasion of Gaza. And so that plus the like being adjacent with the person who makes the song that yells "I am Hitler," made her get kicked out of the Daily Wire, which is run by like an extremely religious Jewish person.
Yeah,
and then she went solo and has basically been promoting like basically has gone like full anti-Semitism craziness.
She's a complicated figure, and by that I mean, thank you. By that I mean she's absolutely off her rocker. She's a buffoon, and I cannot tell if she's a grifter 100%, right? She's a grifter 100%. I don't think she believes in anything that she claims to believe, but she's been doing these live streams that have been getting like hundreds of thousands, millions of views, like live. It's wild. So you can't underestimate the sheer power that Candace Owens has, and we're specifically regarding her theories about what happened to her best friend in the whole world.
Charlie Kirk, we carry the flame.
She carries the flame, all right?
Yeah.
If anyone's carrying the flame, she's carrying the flame. So I can't go into everything she's talked about because it's so hard to follow. But I do want to tell you about just one video that she released recently because I think it steps into like I said, it steps into something that I feel like we would talk about on this show. And maybe we have in the past. We've done 100-something of these episodes. So, Candace Owens believes that Charlie Kirk was not just, a political figure and her best friend, her best bestie, but Charlie Kirk was a figure of supernatural significance involved in a government-monitored timeline. All right?
Government monitored time. Okay, so she's like, he was in the TVA or something.
Charlie Kirk is a time traveler. This is what she's saying.
Every time he touches timelines, his face gets smaller.
He's done it so much. Just his face gets smaller.
So he didn't die. He just went home.
I want to be clear, and to follow your point here, his face gets smaller, not his entire head. His head remains the same size. His face scrunches in a little bit more. So you can tell he's done it a lot. He's time traveled so much.
Charlie Kirk, Time Warrior.
And it's like, it's one of those things, but it's hard to tell if she, like, I don't believe she believes in anything that she says. She's a grifter. She's in it for the money. But she's so insistent about this.
You think that she has like a pitch meeting in the morning where then she's like, all right, what do you think I can get away with this time? Can I say that Charlie Kirk's a time warrior? Is that a thing?
Mm-hmm. Candace suggests, this is right up my alley. Candace suggests that Charlie Kirk attended a specialized school for children with magical powers or unique abilities, similar to Charles Xavier's school for gifted youngsters.
We are Charlie X!
We are Charlie X. Tristan, I'm here. I'm telling you the truth of Charlie. He was a student of mine. Horrible, horrible man.
Oh, no. Is this a bad time to say that we did a bit on this and all of the comments?
Oh, they are? Oh, that's actually,
Xavier bits?
That's great to know. Thank you so much. So then Candace talks about, and you'll have to tell me if we've talked about this in a podcast because I don't remember anymore, but she talks about Project Looking Glass. Have we talked about this? It feels like something we would talk about, but maybe not. It's very much the vibe of this show. It's like talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in my show idea pile.
It's very much things like there's a CIA device that was derived from like ancient Sumerian technology that allows the government to peer into future timelines and like monitor timelines and things like that.
So it is the TVA.
It really much is the TVA, 100%. And then she starts talking about like the Mandela effect and how like reality broke in 1999 and everything is like frozen and artificial and we're in a simulated altered timeline and everything is like weird, like all the things you remember from your past are not real because of the Mandela effect and these timelines and things like that. And the government saw Charlie Kirk's future via this looking glass technology, and they surrounded him with agents basically since he was a kid to ensure a specific outcome. Basically, that he, in the best possible timeline through this looking glass technology, Charlie Kirk had to be assassinated, and they were preparing him to be assassinated in this exact way to further and better the timeline or something like that. It's so
CIA is secretly run by fucking Leto II, the fucking worm god. Like,
look, if nothing else, it is incredibly entertaining. I do not think she believes in anything she says. She's in it for the money, which is why I have no problems laughing at her, because I don't think I'm making fun of someone who's has mental problems. I think she just wants the money. And so she's saying anything.
Hey, I think even if you have mental problems and you're using it to radicalize our entire society, I don't think it gets you off the hook.
That's fair. But it just, I was listening to people, making videos about this and reacting to it, and I was just like, this feels like our wheelhouse in a weird way. So maybe we'll put that in a future video whenever I return to this podcast in the near future.
Yeah, I put it in my idea pile, so every time I go to do a season, I look at the idea pile and see if there's a couple I can toss in that we've been sitting on.
Maybe I'll research it while I'm returning.
We have a couple. Do it. All right. But actually, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about a podcast
sorry
called
to
It's
bring
Probably
that
Not
to your
Aliens.
attention. We're not talking about this today.
No.
But we are a podcast.
Called It's Probably Not Aliens, where we talk about pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, ancient aliens, and claims of the weird and paranormal. More just like the sci-fi stuff. We're the conspiracy, but the sci-fi genre of it.
I am one of the hosts here, at least for now. For now, I'm one of the hosts. I'll be leaving soon.
More on that later.
My name is Scott Nicewander. I know nothing, except for the horrible things that I've been subjected to on the internet that I want to bring to Tristan like a cat dragging a dead bird to a door. That's me with Candace Owens bringing that to you.
My name's Tristan Johnson. I know a lot, but unfortunately it's from one of the other timelines, so none of it is useful. Anytime, there you go. That's my answer now. Anytime we do a corrections episode, I'd be like, actually, it was true in my timeline.
Yeah, sorry.
I live in the timeline where what's it called? The Thing was actually made by Cronenberg. And
what do you think about it? Yeah. It was actually the Mandela effect. You're remembering it wrong, actually. So
yeah, Mandela. I'm Mandela effect. So Scott, I want to tell you about something really weird that is in the world that exists. Do you know about the Kulau Ranch?
I don't think so. No. I think we've established I know nothing.
Okay. True. You are a monk. Your head is free.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Mark Zuckerberg has this insane, like, he kind of owns part of a Hawaiian island, like a lot of it. And you know, people talk about like how he's got like he has his like his place where he smokes meat and where he does taekwondo or whatever bullshit. But people don't talk about the other part of his ranch, which is that he has a $270 million underground compound designed for the end of the world.
Okay, so it's that kind of. I thought, and honestly, in my head, I was like, man, I bet smoked meat tastes great dipped in some Kulau Ranch. That sounds delicious. But it's not a sauce, is what you're telling me.
No.
Okay.
No, it's a 5,000 square foot underground bunker that has blast resistant concrete doors and a whole self-sufficient water and food system. And he's not alone in doing this. There's actually like a bunch of other, I'll get into it a little bit later in the episode, but there's a bunch of like tech billionaires who are doing similar things. So why? Why are the richest people in the world
to seclude themselves? This feels. Yeah. I have been watching the new season of Fallout, so this feels related.
Yeah. They're digging holes. So yeah, are they like afraid of nuclear war or climate change, or do they know something about the schedule?
Whoa. What do they know? What is Candace telling them?
Maybe they're not. What's Candace? Yeah. Maybe that Zuckerberg's not inventing some survival strategy, but he's reenacting a historical event. He's trying to rebuild the Ark that saved humanity 74,000 years ago.
Noah's Ark, more like Noah's
when the
Mark.
aliens.
Am I right?
Yeah. Because if we go to Sumatra in Indonesia, 74,000 years ago was a rather significant event for our little planet. A supervolcano called Toba exploded.
Oh no.
And it wasn't just a supervolcano, it was like a planetary reset button. The sun was blocked for years, the temperature dropped, ecosystems collapsed, and humanity was reduced to a small big population, overpopulation, as ancient aliens would say, to like 3,000 people. We were having a good time, and then, you know, the galactic HOA had noise complaint, because ancient aliens actually said, like, that humans were becoming noisy, rebellious, stagnant. And so they had to do what ancient aliens said is thinning the herd.
We were a big frat house.
Yeah.
And we needed to be reminded that college is actually about good grades and getting a good job and not just partying.
So yeah, maybe it wasn't a tragedy, like, you know, maybe it wasn't a disaster, but it was like a Thanos type thing.
A very slightly overzealous Thanos, because Thanos was like, I'll wipe out 50%. This feels like it was, I will wipe out almost everybody.
So that means that if they try to reset us, why are we, like, you know, messy? They say that ash fell for 6 years, that the plants died, and that the useless eaters all were wiped out, and that a chosen few in alien-protected underground bunkers survived to make the better humans.
Oh, this sucks already.
Yeah, you're like I know where this is going.
Oh no.
So I'm going to propose to you something.
I'm already married. But
What if ancient aliens? Yeah. What if ancient aliens was wrong?
wait, hold on. You can't just
maybe
say
that-
that. You can't just say what if ancient aliens were wrong, because I have a button that says otherwise. I have a button that says this.
What if it were true?
What if it were true? Two can play the what if
Yeah.
game.
But like, what if when Toba affected humanity, we didn't survive by being in bunkers? In fact, actually, because like, to be honest, Toba was probably the closest thing we've had to like a truly apocalyptic event affect humanity.
Okay.
74,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But what if the thing that Mark Zuckerberg would try to do to lock out all the people trying to get his Facebooks or whatever?
Yeah.
What if the thing that saved us is the thing that he's trying to lock out? So I want to look at this plan, this ancient alien plan to delete, or this ancient plan to delete
Okay.
humanity, and why that plan to destroy us failed. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Toba.
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 We
Toba.
are a
Toba.
frat house.
Yeah. Toba house.
All right. Tell me what.
Okay.
me-
We've got a lot. Yeah, we got a
tell me
lot of
what
ground to cover
millions of people
today.
around the world believe.
Oh. All right. We're through the looking glass. Project Looking Glass, people. Okay. For people who are like, regular space potatoes, you're going to start noticing a lot of things we talked about before all being tied in, as all the meta conspiracies do. But
Meta.
yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Mhm.
That's pretty good.
So here's what Ancient Aliens says in the episode that we're covering. And I should also mention, so we are doing an episode of Ancient. We're doing a new season. This is our first content episode of the new season. It is about an episode called Ancient Devastations. The whole theme of this season is that it's about ancient aliens' obsession with the apocalypse, with eugenics, and the idea that humanity is a flock of sheep that occasionally needs to be slaughtered.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So,
pretty light.
That's,
Pretty light stuff.
yeah.
I don't know if we've officially announced this, but maybe now's a great time to say I won't be joining for most of this season.
Yeah. I guess like we don't want to make people wait all the way to the end. So before we dive
me
in,
and my wife are having our first baby, and I am here for this episode of this season, and then Tristan's kicking me off. He's making me leave. I don't want to. I want to be here for you, but Tristan says no. Be with your child, and I said, all right, fine.
he kept trying to tell me that he wants to come back at a specific time, and I've kept being like, no, vibe it out. Come back when you're ready. I got this.
I was on that hustle grind set. I was ready to monetize my child, and Tristan said, no, Scott, be a responsible parent. And I said, fine. So I will not be here for most of this season, but Tristan has a stellar line of guests for this season. Absolute stars for bangers, top to bottom. And I'm excited to be a listener and listen to this podcast and learn.
Yeah.
But I'm here for this episode.
We are going to record this. We're going to record the Q&A for the patrons and the
Yes.
Nebula people before you go.
But
So
this is my last episode of not being a father, basically. So
yeah.
so cool. So with that in mind, tell me about how people want to tell me about the end of the world and the culling of humanity.
Sure. All right. So I split Ancient Aliens' claim down to like 4 major sections. So the first one is that humanity 1.0 was a problem. So this is from, and we're already getting started with the good stuff, the Sitchin Foundation.
Zechariah Sitchin?
Yeah, so we're back to Zechariah Sitchin, who is often cited in the episode that that we're talking about today, that aliens known as the Anunnaki, i.e. the lizard people.
I.e. Scooby-Doo. A descendant, by the way. He's not an Anunnaki. He's a descendant of an Anunnaki. Just FYI.
Oh. So according to Zechariah Sitchin, 450,000 years ago, the aliens, the Anunnaki, came here to mine precious Earth gold. And I think we mentioned that they believe that Earth gold is special compared
All
to
the gold out
because
in the
like
universe.
going down in gravity,
Yeah.
all the gold in our solar system that is like locked in the asteroid belt that would be way easier for a spaceship to get, that's no good. Because Earth gold lets you go to other dimensions or something, shit like that.
You gotta get special Earth gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Earth is one of the worst places to get gold in our solar system.
Yeah, but I think that
Okay,
it's
so-
harder to get, which means it's probably cooler and specialer. You put the work in. You put the work in.
And a technologically super advanced race that had mastered interstellar travel would get that gold by genetically engineering Homo sapiens to make a sort of slave race or a worker race. We're supposed to just be like biological machinery, not like a civilization. We're just supposed to be like flesh Wally.
And our only purpose is to mine Earth gold.
Yeah. They should have just given us shovels for hands or something.
Yeah, honestly, poor design.
So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's true. So so we can call this version that they made 450,000 years ago Humanity 1.0. And we started to
we
become
didn't
a
have
problem.
shovels for
According
hands.
to
I get it. They needed to restart.
We didn't have shovels for hands. Yep. They became noisy. This is the quote from the show. They became noisy, rebellious, and it was just time to wipe them out.
We accidentally
So,
discovered beer and
we
wine.
were,
and what are you going to do?
Yeah, at that point, all bets are off. So this noise was a sign of a defect, that we were building civilization without their permission. So the aliens decided that it was time for us to go. And what they're claiming, and this is sort of like one of the things that pops up over and over again in the episode, is that what if all of the natural disasters, all of them, or at least the big ones that we know,
okay, sure.
What if they were actually events designed to kind of contain our population growth?
Okay.
Which also, they literally in the quote is like, is there a way that you can trigger a volcano?
Is there?
No.
There's not. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't trigger a volcano. You can't trigger a volcano.
Well,
we all
okay.
knew that.
I can't say it's impossible.
You can joke about whatever you want around a volcano. They don't get triggered.
I'll get into a little bit of it later. I'm trying to give the best possible version of their argument that I can.
Okay.
So So their claim is that Toba was a technological innovation or intervention that they used the supervolcano to induce a volcanic winter over the planet, which they called a global fumigation to block the sun and crash the food web.
Okay.
In the show, they literally said it's very possible that the aliens decided that in order to cleanse the planet, they needed to do things on a huge magnitude and thin out the human race by triggering a volcano.
You trigger a big volcano.
Mm-hmm. And the evidence they have for it is the third claim, that there is that humanity dropped to as few as 3,000 people, which you can see in our genetics with a bottleneck. Because one of the interesting things about humanity is that we're not that genetically diverse compared to other animals. And there was a very popular theory that was based around Toba, that Toba wiped out a large section of humanity because of population density stuff and genetics and all that. So, but in the ancient aliens worldview, these 3,000 people weren't just lucky people, they were chosen, directly referencing Noah,
Right.
who was given like the blueprints for the ark, which also is a device by their mind.
Not a ship, literally.
Yeah.
All right.
And the survivors, the ones that they picked for, were the elites or the compliant ones, the ones that they wanted to save. Either they were good workers or they were really smart, and that the useless ones who just ate were left outside of the bunker and were left to be volcanoed.
The device is the thing that triggers the volcano.
No, the device was to save them, but then the aliens used the device to trigger the volcano.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. So their main argument is that this cull was necessary to make room for new humans, that they had given the ETs came in, they gave us an upgrade to our DNA, and that
humans, if you will.
Yeah. And so like the Toba catastrophe was actually an attempt to like here's some new DNA. We're going to put you in like a human version of a hothouse by putting you in a bunker underground and really kind of get those genes changing. But because before Toba, in a line that was genuinely one of the most racist things I've ever seen on Ancient Aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos said that before Toba, we were just, quote, sitting in caves munching on bananas.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The aliens picked the best of the best to survive. And weirdly, a lot of them were white when you think about it.
Yeah,
that's the vibe I'm getting from this.
Their evidence is that after the Toba bottleneck, we started seeing pyramids and Sumeria appear overnight. We couldn't have evolved. We couldn't have evolved or anything like that. The bottleneck was like a surgical change that brought civilization to the Earth.
Okay.
So according to the History Channel, Toba was an act of eugenics.
Yep.
The aliens looked at humanity, decided we were trash, and then incinerated the planet to kill 99% of us, and then genetically modified the survivors to be smarter, quieter, and better at stacking rocks.
That's what hands are good for. Stacking. They were like, oh, hands. Yeah. Better. Hands are not great for digging and mining earth gold. They are great for stacking rocks.
But also they can't stack rocks.
But yeah, true. But also they can't stack rocks, and they do need alien technology.
Man, this is tough.
To help them. They're stuck between a rock that they didn't stack and a hard place.
Yeah.
Whew.
So, again, it's a terrifying story. It's a compelling story. It's interesting.
Sure.
But and tries to explain how he went from, quote, bananas to pyramids. But there's one problem that I have with it, which is that there's one big one.
Okay.
Which is that this is kind of an interesting aspect of our sort of like work through of the show that's going to appear. When Ancient Aliens aired this episode, the Toba catastrophe theory was Toba catastrophe hypothesis was actually being taken seriously, and it is not today. So they didn't get, like, humanity didn't go into a bunker, didn't have a DNA upgrade, and they definitely weren't quiet. We have physical proof that while the aliens were cleansing the Earth, humanity was doing something that should have been impossible by their standards. So yeah, that's the claim as the aliens are doing, and I kind of want to talk about each of those arguments in succession.
I would love nothing more than that.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one, that it was a sort of it was an inside job, that aliens thought that humans had become noisy, rebellious, inferior, and so they triggered a supervolcano to weed us out. And one of the things that did come up was that it was done to weed out like overpopulation, like excessive population growth. So why don't we start with that? Because it's very interesting. The human population, if you were to consider at the time of the Toba catastrophe, which I will mention, 74,000 years ago, an insanely long time ago.
Pretty long.
Like, Göbekli Tepe, like the really, really, really fucking old site, is about like 13,000 years old.
Okay.
75,000 years ago is like so far back is absurd. Like, we can't even imagine it.
It's pretty far back there. No. I'm trying and I can't.
So by around the time of the Toba catastrophe, there were about maybe 5 digits worth of people on Earth, the whole Earth, mostly in Africa.
All right.
So that is that. So our like the entire
tens of thousands at most.
The entire world's population would be like a small city.
All right.
Like, again, like, a few dozen thousand people.
Yeah. A nice little community.
So Thanos, in need of Thanosing, we were not.
Thanos said there's not enough resources for these tens of thousands of people.
There are thousands of us. Thousands.
There are thousands. That's way too many. Earth could never support thousands of people.
Yeah. So there's some interesting evidence that shows like the real stuff and also the alien stuff. So a genetic study of humans do indicate that we do have, in the late Pleistocene, which is this period, a genetic bottleneck where the effective breeding population was only a few thousand people, tens of thousands of people, not millions. So
Sure.
that shows that's a pretty good sign. On top of that, recent modeling describes like small scattered groups surviving and spreading after Toba. So it was not like we have a pretty good like timeline of what humanity looked like up until Toba, and then the Toba effect, and then the sort of repeat of us moving out after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the estimates sometimes are cited as us having about 5,000 to 10,000 people who survived after Toba. But what it's usually a reference to is not actually the population that survived Toba. What it is, it's a reference to the size of the ancestral breeding population that all modern humans are related to, not the total humans alive at the time.
Okay.
So to try so this means
just hold on.
Yeah.
I think I understand.
Okay.
And you can tell me if I'm wrong.
All right.
So 5 to 10,000 people is the total number of like where the ancestors that we get our genome from. There could have been, double, triple, quadruple that amount, but all of them had their balls burned off when Toba exploded.
You got it.
And they couldn't reproduce.
You nailed it. But you couldn't nail it because you got your balls burned off.
Couldn't nail it.
But yeah, basically, like, there may have been more people. There's just nobody alive today who is like a descendant of them.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
Yeah.
Whether they got their balls burned off or something else happened.
Maybe they got their balls burned off. We don't know.
We don't know.
It's plausible.
That's what that guy who had a heart attack at January 6th because he tasered his balls did.
The one ancestor left from that, and all
before
gone.
the corrections episode, I know that's a hoax. It's just very funny to imagine that there's a guy who tasered his balls at January 6th.
Yes.
Also, the whole talk about noisy humans has a very specific source, and it's not from any science. It's from something called the Atrahasis epic.
Okay.
So I'll kind of get into that. It's a Babylonian myth from the 18th century BCE. So it's like, almost 4,000 years old, significantly smaller than the 75 or 74,000 that we were talking about here.
Right.
A drop, like, what's it called? 4,000 years ago is literally like a drop in the bucket compared to that. There's still 70,000 more years to go.
Yeah, true.
Just absolutely insane amounts of time. So, but it said that according to the myth, the epic of Atrahasis, human numbers grew and their noise disturbed Enlil, who is sort of a Babylonian god, who then tried to reduce their numbers with plague, famine, and finally a flood. Translations repeat this motif almost verbatim. The land becomes unbearably loud, Enlil cannot sleep, and orders disasters to cut the human population. So when the ancient astronauts people are talking about gods or aliens trying to wipe out the noisy humans, they are taking mythology from ancient Mesopotamia, almost line for line, and not describing any evidence that actually existed from 74,000 years ago. So they're referring to something that is 3,000 or 4,000 years old, almost 4,000 years old. And using that as evidence for something that happened 74,000 years ago.
They're taking a little story.
Yeah. It's like if in 3,000 years, Ancient Aliens was still on the air and they tried to make a claim that in 2021, there was a evil god named Thanos that thought humanity was too noisy, so he snapped and made COVID. Like that's the kind of level that they're going at here.
And you know what? Honestly, I don't necessarily have a problem, because a lot of cultures and religions and things like that are based on, stories that have been passed down and whatnot. But this is the History Channel, and you're presenting this as fact, and not presenting it as a story, like a myth. And that's sort of, I don't know, not great.
Yeah. And also, I'm not a person to dismiss oral history or even that, its accuracy over time. I think we mentioned in an episode earlier that there is a group of indigenous Australians that have in their oral history something that seems like it might be a description of an Ice Age animal that went extinct thousands of years ago.
Cool.
Which is pretty neat. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, the idea of just taking a myth and then copying it line for line that's not even from the place or the time of the Toba eruption.
Right.
And then just being
That's
like
just
that.
wrong.
That's what happened.
That's just
what,
wrong.
Like it's like not even like you can like sometimes myths do have seeds of like real things that happen in them.
Sure.
But this is literally like, here's our evidence, a non-related thing from a non-related time and a completely different place. Clever. Awesome.
Love it.
Also, just looking at Ancient Aliens' like description of what they meant by inferior in this is pretty telling as to like the ideologies we're working at here. So like pre-contact humans who they deemed inferior, they considered them inferior because they were either non-technological from their perspective, or they were basically indigenous. Like they're basically saying like, hey, they didn't have, this is like the coal thing that people talked about. They didn't have roads, or they didn't have wheels because they didn't have roads. So therefore their complex, like systematic knowledge of like their ecosystem and foraging stuff and like literally geoengineering at some points, genetic engineering at other points, like that stuff doesn't matter.
Right.
What really matters is like the ability to make cargo room or whatever.
It's not even necessarily that it doesn't matter. I think I think, to be honest, a lot of it is, I mean, at least at the start, when, as obviously as we've been talking about this, it feels like it just, white people didn't recognize it, didn't see it. You know what I mean? So it's not like they saw, like, white colonizers like saw like the, ingenious techniques that they were that other indigenous cultures were using to farm and grow things and travel and all this stuff, and be like, oh, that's nothing compared to what it's just, they didn't see it and they discounted it, and that just sort of get passed down as like, oh, they did nothing.
Yeah,
they did nothing.
I mean, for my like grad school stuff, I had to, because I'm an expert in America and American stuff. There's like really good, like there's writings that I've read of like people from like the 1600s like landing on the like kind of in Virginia and like what's it called in New England, where they're referring to the indigenous people as having like living a life of leisure where all they do is garden and hunt. And the reason the thing is that they called it gardening because their like planting technique didn't look like farms, so they just thought it was gardens. And gardening is like an elite sort of like leisure activity. And then they also said hunting, and the thing is that in like European culture, hunting is like a thing that you do as like a sport. Yeah, it's not a thing you do like to feed yourself. And so they thought that like the indigenous people were just like lazy layabouts who did like fun things because they saw all of the ways that they were getting all of their food, and then and dismissed it until, of course, when winter came and all of their European crops they tried to grow didn't grow, and they were starving and had to beg the indigenous people for some fucking food. Yeah. But then they had Thanksgiving and then they killed them all later. Fun. Oh boy. But yeah. So according to Ancient Aliens, if we're going to go by their definition of inferior here, a human being who lives in nature, like a foraging society, or who lives in a cave, that's inferior. That's stagnation. Boo. Because you have to build stone monuments. That's the building stone monuments is the key to making an upgraded civilization.
Yes. Build big triangles.
Yep. Also, they also talk about the inferiority as being people who are disobedient or noisy. They explicitly state that humans were created to be a slave race or a work race to mine all that earth gold. And that the justification for the cull was that humans became noisy, rebellious, and it was just time to wipe us out. So in this case, noisy means probably resisting.
Not literally making noise.
Yeah. So we were not being good, obedient servants.
The aliens gave us free will and we questioned authority.
Yep.
That was the first thing we did with it. They were like, hey, go mine some sweet earth gold. And then one of them just said, why? And they were like, fuck it. All right, we got to nuke these people. They started asking questions.
Oh, so it's a cop. Okay. Anyways. Oh, my God. Okay. So according to Ancient Aliens, the aliens needed to, quote, and these are the words they used that was really interesting, quote, correct genetic mistakes, and eradicate a species that they may have genetically altered or screwed with. Then they were like, weed out excessive population growth or perhaps exterminate inferior genetic strains. So basically these are like kind of things they're thinking about, like what the disasters were for. And so they think the goal was to create a sort of hybrid that anything that deviates from pure alien hybrid mix is a waste product to be discarded. So all of this sounds, which by the way, that's going to be the topic of like our kind of last video of the season, or episode of the season. So this all sounds
videos, Tristan.
Yeah, I know. I keep making that up. I keep mixing that up. It's all right. Today I was my wife teaches a class on on the psychology of religion. And today she did a lesson on morality, and the trolley problem came up.
Oh.
And I found the absurd trolley problems website, and I kept being like, oh no, a trolley problem is heading towards you. And I kept saying that over and over again. I could not break that habit.
That's very good.
But yeah, so I don't know. This sounds like some eugenics bullshit.
Yeah, it does, man. It feels so gross.
Yeah. So to kind of fit on this whole thing about like human population and weeding and like genetic stuff, this is the typical Malthusian argument, which I imagine, Scott, if you've ever made a video about Thanos before, you've probably talked about Malthus.
Maybe. I talked about nihilism.
Okay. Well, Malthus was kind of a way to do nihilism in his own way.
Okay.
So Thomas Malthus is a figure that is probably important to know for understanding. Anytime that anybody complains about overpopulation, tell them about Thomas Malthus, because it's called a Malthusian argument for a reason.
Gotcha.
So Thomas Malthus in 1798 wrote a bunch of like work that proposed that the population of the world, the population of Britain, grows geometrically. So basically like exponentially. But the food supply, the amount of food that we can farm grows arithmetically. So linearly, like at a steady rate. Which is always
one's a straight line. One is a big old curve that's hard to keep up with.
Exactly. So that creates pressure. So that there's this situation where basically the food supply and the population keep fighting against each other. And as they get close to the carrying capacity, you start seeing things like famine, disease, and war that push the population back down. And so in doing so, he said that like we need to do more stuff like that. All this to say is that his conclusion is that we should stop helping the poor, because a lot of his claims,
cool,
along with a lot of people who claim that we have an overpopulation problem today, is just saying that we need to stop helping the poor.
Yeah, this is the thing. And I also just want to point out that I don't think Thanos in the comics, at least not in the original like Infinity Gauntlet story, I don't think he cared about overpopulation and resources. I think that was just a thing for the movies to try and make him seem, they wanted to give him a motivation that would make him more like you could resonate with him, like maybe you could see his side of it. But like I've never been one to ascribe to that idea of like, oh, there's not enough resources and there's too much people. So like I never sympathized with Thanos. I was like, dude, fucking just create more resources. If you're so worried about that, you have the Infinity Gauntlet. What the fuck are you doing? Yeah,
you can manipulate time. Just make a new reality that has infinite resources. There you go.
And again, not that I even think it's a thing to worry about. I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but like,
I did a video about this. I actually did a video about this because it was the thoughts that were in my head when my son was born, and everybody, like, whenever I talked about the fact that I was having a kid, I had a disturbing number of like people who I thought were like in my political space who would be like, "Oh, you shouldn't have kids. It's bad." And it's like, I mean, the general gist is one. If you look at every single economy on Earth, like once they grow to once they make a certain sort of phase change, like every economy goes through a period where they grow really fast in population once the standards of living start to increase, usually through industrialization. Then you get into industrialization and you go through this phase change where well, if you're an agrarian society, having kids is an asset because you have more people to work on your family farm. When you're in industrial capacity and those kids need to go to school, they have healthcare needs, they have all these things, then they become a liability. And you can see the population growth start to slow down and eventually reverse. It's also tied to things like women's education and like birth control and all that kind of stuff. So as people have more control over their reproduction, as the incentives change so that more kids is becoming it's a cost rather than an asset. Like it is a burden on your finances rather than an asset. Then you start seeing kids, the amount of children that people have on average go down. And in very mature industrial societies, to the point where they go to like the point of like service societies, like, the United States, like Canada, like pretty much all of Europe, and like especially the biggest ones are like Japan and Korea, you start seeing the population growth actually decline and start getting lower. And so like that's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you factor that sort of process and you look at our current population growth, almost all of the population growth that's happening right now, at least for the last few decades, was happening in India and China, especially India. But those countries, especially China, are maturing as economies. And they are going to, and you're already seeing in India and China, a slowing down of their population growth. And in a few decades, they will peak and they'll go through the same process that we are. Now, and I think that I've told this to literally everybody that I've had a conversation with, because it's one of the most important things for understanding the next century. There are a handful of countries that have not gone through that process, that have not fully gone through the industrialization, like population growth and then decline process. And it's because we've been spending the last few centuries basically in a nonstop state of robbing all of their shit so that we can do the industrialization of our own countries. So almost all of the countries that are like expected to have big population booms in the latter half of the 21st century are all in sub-Saharan Africa. So when you're talking about, hey, we have too many people, overpopulation is a problem, and we're entering into a phase in the earth where almost everybody who is being born is black, that's not a good look, bud. And on top of that, I'll be mentioning that that they are like the average, the average Westerner uses like multiple tens of times the resources of your average person in like sub-Saharan Africa. And a child born there, like their contribution to like resource use and climate change is minuscule compared to us. So most of the new people that will be entering the earth are not going to be like consuming resources at the rate of Westerners. And on top of that, they will also, they will also hit that peak and they will also start declining to the point where our estimates show that the Earth's population will probably cap at about 9 billion, and we're already at 8 billion. We'll hit 9 billion and we'll probably plateau there for quite a while and then start to slowly decline because these countries are sort of the last part of the world that has not gone through this process. On top of that,
I was gonna add something. Yeah. You go ahead. Yeah, go.
I have one personal aside to add to this, which is a big deal as a Canadian too, and a thing for everybody. If you want advice for what to teach your kid, say if you're going to have one in a few weeks, about one of the things that you should do.
Tell me. I'm not Canadian, but yeah.
Luckily, you're also married to somebody who will give you a leg up on this. Of those countries that are expected to have like the lion's share of new humans in the next few decades, most of them are French-speaking countries. So learn French.
Start speaking French. No, don't learn French. Start speaking French now.
Just
try.
start. Just wing it.
Just try. I was going to say, on top of all of that, and I don't know how much further we're digging in, so I don't want to like cut you off if you're going to say anything about this, but like, also, like, we do have the resources for all the people. It's just maybe capitalism isn't the best way to distribute those resources because at least the United States has multiple cheese caves of just where we put cheese, that it's over because the dairy industry is overproducing cheese and we can't use it because it's too much of it. And rather than give it to people who need it, or, you know, just give it away for free, that's not profitable. So we store it in a cave. We store it in multiple caves. Billions of pounds of cheese because we're producing too much, actually.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, it's a good point. Like the fact that that we, I said this in a class day. The fact that we decided to have all of our economies made so that like just anybody can like make a little cog in our economy, and that their plan is to do things. Yeah, we overproduce, we overmanufacture. We could have everybody have a like decent standard of living without in like sustainably with like a 9 billion person population if we just like dealt with overproduction and unequal distribution of resources, because the people who have like fucking private jets and shit, like the upper 1% use like an insanely high percentage comparatively of like the world's resources to do their thing. So so to kind of get back to Malthus,
look, I'm lactose intolerant, but I would dive in headfirst into these cheese caves. All right,
like fucking cheese Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah,
or not McDuck, McDuck. Sorry,
McDuck. Yeah. All right, let's get back to the actual,
so
thing.
That's just like a rant that I think is important.
That is a couple of dads or soon-to-be dads talking about justifying having children, and that overpopulation isn't the problem.
Yeah, it was just when I had a kid, I had a lot of people that I was like, I thought were like, open-minded 100%. Progressive people who like, I was shocked to be like, like, why are you doing that? And I was like, I mean, someone's got to exist in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I said this I made a video about having a kid, and I sort of said in my video that like, if the only people who continued to have children were the people who didn't care about making the world a better place, where would we be?
Yeah. So. One of my really, really close friends who also used to be my PhD supervisor, who also was a guest on one episode of this podcast. He said to me when I had a kid that it was like having a child is like despite everything, it is like a fundamental act of optimism, because you are doing so saying that you are investing yourself in like 2100. Like your kid's going to be born in 2026, which means your kid's going to be 74 in the year 2100. That's not that old. Like
True.
Yeah. So you are invested now in the 22nd century, and which means you have to like you have to make it happen.
All right. I'll do my best.
So when it comes to Malthus, the major problem that he has, and a lot of the overpopulation people have, because there's another really big book called The Population Bomb that came out in the 60s or the 70s that also informed kind of like left-wing Malthusianism, where people are like,
okay,
it's environmentally bad to have kids. So in ecology, so the idea is that's based on us having what's called a fixed carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is like a term that we use in ecology to study like, hey, there's this many deer in this acre of wood. Therefore, the population can only sustain this many wolves, because if there's too many wolves, then there's not enough food and the wolf population goes down, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Now, in ecology, carrying capacity is useful for species that have like regular behavior and resource use, like deer. But humans aren't deer. I know, big change.
That's huge, man.
Yeah.
That's a huge discovery.
The reason mainly is that when we have a problem, we have this weird habit of fucking around with the laws of physics until we find something that fixes it. Like we invent new technologies and stuff like that. So like when, the overpopulation people in like the 1960s or 70s were going like, oh, we're going to hit this wall, another thing. We just started learning how to like genetically engineer crops or make new fertilizers or make like the Haber-Bosch process and stuff like that have like every time we've come close to carrying capacity or even entertain the idea, we're like constantly thinking of new ways to get more out of the resources we have. So we also trade, which means that we can specialize. Specializing means like just we're constantly changing how many people the world can support. Mm-hmm. And so our societies increase yields, substitute resources, and reorganize our production. So capacity isn't really a single ceiling. So critics of Malthus point out that the fixed limit model ignores politics, it ignores innovation, it ignores hunger, it ignores inequality, distribution, access, power, say more than about whether we have resources for everybody than just the simple amount of people versus the limits of the planet. And this undercuts the ancient alien narrative that there's just like a manager who periodically calls the population because the numbers get, quote, too high.
Too many people.
Yeah.
I gotta delete some of these Sims off my hard drive.
Every so often it's like when your phone is full of photos or whatever. So
all the people they called are being uploaded to the cloud. Oh,
that's the rapture. Okay. So that's the whole thing on like there's no, so the motive isn't really there. So the other part is the Toba was an inside job argument that aliens would have had a technology where they can manipulate volcanoes.
Yeah.
The claim was that they used an energy weapon or gravity manipulation to trigger the Toba caldera and timed it to halt human development without destroying the planet entirely. A surgical strike on the biosphere.
I figured it was going to be a big red button, and you press it, and it's just Roseanne Barr going, "My pronouns are kiss my ass. My pronouns are get a job." And it's stuff like that.
Dear
That's
God.
so it's so triggering to me. I'm so triggered when she says stuff like that.
Oh my God.
Do you think between jokes, when I make jokes like that and us playing Charlie Kirk, do you think people get confused that about where we land politically?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's hard to know that half the stuff we say is steeped in 3 layers of irony, or at least
we're like irony poison internet leftists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't you say your stepdad listens to this show?
My stepdad has tried to listen to this show and can't figure out how the podcast app works.
How to make the
I think
podcast
we're
machine happen. Okay. So the thing though, and this is the real answer, supervolcanoes have their own reasons for erupting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no evidence of Toba, a very well-studied volcano, of anything that would indicate beams or gravity manipulations, because like many mountains, it's still there. It's like many volcanoes, just because it erupted doesn't mean it's gone. So we can study them. So I then was going to go looking into what actually triggers supervolcanoes, because supervolcanoes are interesting. Don't look, but there are many supervolcanoes around the world, including, well, there's a handful anyways around the world, including one directly below Yellowstone Park, which if it were ever to erupt, would basically be an apocalyptic event for the world.
That would be bad.
So enjoy Old Faithful. But supervolcanoes are these massive magma reservoirs that build, and then what happens is that they water-rich rock melt, rise from a subducting plate, and then they start. So what happens is there's this big imagine a pimple almost. Big old reservoir of hot fucking magma, and then water gets into it, and the water does a weird thing when exposed to temperatures that are like thousands of degrees Celsius.
I believe it does. If I had to guess, does it cease to exist as water?
Yeah, it turns into a huge amount of steam, which creates more pressure. You might remember from the Chernobyl disaster, which kind of was like this.
Yep.
So the gases started getting
there. How did you know I was there?
I did 9/11. You did Chernobyl.
I didn't do anything. You can't pin that on me.
Yeah. Well,
that is why I'm bald, though.
To the radiation. Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Now you have, and they have an overwhelming urge to defeat Superman.
True. Hate that guy.
So the reservoir then grows. It gets hotter and more molten. There's a lower density because there's higher gas pressure, because gas is less dense than rock. And this creates overpressures that can then crack kilometers of overlying rock, which causes a roof collapse. And eventually, the pressure just gets too much, and then there's this massive eruption, and all this shit blows up into the air because there's just so much pressure building for so much time. Because we're dealing with rock and kilometers of stone and magma, the amount of pressure that we're talking about is unimaginably high. So when these things go off, they go fucking off, and they blow shit across the planet.
Can I ask a question? Not from and I don't want an answer from you. I'm going to use our podcast the way that other people might use AI, where you just sort of ask whatever's on your mind and hope to get an answer back. So this is a question for any experts out there in our audience to write in on our like corrections form that I still have to make, or update rather. So I'm just going to ask, like I'm typing this in and I'm going to say, what's the difference between rock and stone, and enter. And I'm going to get a nice response to that in about, I mean, I'm sure as soon as this episode goes up, but we're not going to read it until 3 to 4 months from now. So
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens.
Okay. So, we have done a lot of studies on Toba, because Toba is one of, like, 74,000 years ago in volcano time is not that long ago. And so it's one of those things where, like, it's a supervolcano eruption site that we can study really thoroughly to understand how volcanoes work, and geology, because, you know, there's good old rockheads that like to get in there and get all in that business. So Toba, we've studied like the sort of like pathways and its like shape, and we see that there's this entirely natural magma feeder from slab to crust, or from slab, yeah. So like, you know, magma coming up, and that's exactly the plate tectonics that we imagine for a large subduction zone volcano. So it's not like we see exactly all of the signs of a large supervolcano without any need for there to be any external things that made it go off.
Okay.
Speaking of external things to make it go off, we see lots of like what are called tephra and cryptotephra layers.
You slid into that transition as if it was the end of the episode. I'm so used to you being like, speaking of this, you can follow us on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think we're done yet.
No. We've got a little bit. So yeah, there's like a lot of signs of like cyclic arc magma that show natural variations in elements like potassium, magnesium, and calcium. So we don't see any signs of like exotic materials, like, you know, like something like a nuclear bomb or anything that like would have caught, like that would have been a thing that manipulated. Like we don't see any evidence of any like stuff left over from it. And other supervolcano studies show that there's like that eruption sequences are entirely known through magnetic processes such as volatile flux, melt buoyancy, roof collapse. So there's like all of the things that were there that could have a supervolcano, all were there in the right amount to do the thing.
Okay. It's pretty open and shut.
Yeah.
Feels.
Also, just to like kind of show the like absolute fucking hubris of the idea that we could be powerful enough to control a volcano and make it do what we want.
Yeah. Is
completely ignoring the amount of, a supervolcano on the level of Toba would release energy on the order of 10,000 megatons of TNT. Which the largest nuclear bomb that humanity has ever made is called the Tsar Bomba. It was developed by the Soviet Union. To be the equivalent of a supervolcano eruption, we would need to detonate 200 of those. We're talking about like the caldera that had Toba in it would require energy stored in literally tens of thousands of cubic kilometers of magma that is through a fractured crust. So aiming or modulating that reservoir with like a beam or a gravity device would require managing ridiculous amounts of energy to a chaotic rock system to make it do what you want. And there's the other part too, which is just like they're from space. And if you want to cause a detonation or a major disaster on Earth, I know a way easier way than igniting a volcano. It's just grab one of those fucking rocks and chuck it at the planet real hard.
Hurl it at us.
That'll do the trick more than the volcano. It'll do your thing.
Play catch with the Earth.
And so like the thing is that we did see Toba was a major apocalyptic level event for the world. Wasn't like the dinosaurs or anything like that, but a lot of sulfur came out of the volcano and got blasted into the stratosphere, which then turned into sulfuric acid. So like acid rain. But sulfuric acid forms this like reflective aerosol veil that then gets into the stratosphere and covers the planet and reduces the amount of sunlight, and it causes a global cooling effect. In fact, this is one of the things that we're trying to one of the this is one of the proposed plans to intentionally do as a form of geoengineering in order to kind of fix climate change, or at least temporarily assuage it. So larger eruptions can cause cooling of up to about 0.5 degree Celsius for 1 to 3 years. That's quite significant. If you think about the if you think about the amount of energy being blocked to decrease the temperature of the entire planet down 0.5 degree, that is a lot of energy being taken out of the system, which then
that's great.
Well, it led to crop failures and the death of plants.
Oh, yeah. Not great, but good.
So, and it does take like multiple years, like 3 or 4 years, for the aerosols to kind of come out of the atmosphere. And during those times, you see weaker rain seasons, crop failures, but it's always temporal. It's not like, because one of the things that was also is that like this triggered an ice age. It's like, it won't do something like that. It will trigger like a few years of colder temperatures, but then it does sort of correct itself.
That's good. I don't know how many more Ray Romano has in him. I don't know if we can do one more ice age.
For real. Yeah, and so like we see like in modern eruptions that seed banks survive, soils aren't completely burned, plants start recolonizing within months of a lot of these places that are hit. Then, later on the bugs and the birds will come as the vegetation does. And so, our ecology does what our ecology does. It always kind of bounces back. If we just get out of the way. And so post-eruption, you might see like complete habitat loss in some places, but some places aren't affected entirely or not infected all that much at all. And those become the places where the ecology bounces back. So humans did not go extinct or nearly vanish after Toba. Some populations, including some in the South African coast, appeared to have persisted and even thrived at the time of the Toba catastrophe.
They loved it.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
it was an inside job.
Well, so that is I am really starting to think that this might need to be a two-parter.
We can't do a two-parter. I'm not going to be here.
All right. Buckle in then.
We can do a two-parter if this is a good. I can find another time to record if you think this needs to be a two-parter. We can do it. I'm available. It's really up to your schedule. I'm available this entire month.
Okay, let's finish this section then, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other part of the claim is that the eruption reduced humanity to a genetic bottleneck of about 3,000 survivors. That they were this chosen stock that were then genetically engineered or pushed to do this thing. The problem, though, is that the time when ancient aliens made this, there was a hypothesis that the Toba catastrophe or the Toba eruption caused or reduced to make a bottleneck of about 3,000 humans. Again, a bottleneck, not like reducing the population of 3,000 humans. Mm-hmm. But this actually, since Ancient Aliens did its episode, probably even during when Ancient Aliens aired this episode, this has been much more put into contention to the point where it's not really considered taken all that seriously anymore. So,
no.
Yeah,
did they take the episode down to make corrections?
Seemingly not. No,
that's so strange. Normally they're really good about that.
You'd think. So, more recent look at the effect of the Toba eruption on humanity places a severe bottleneck not 74,000 years ago, but about 1 million years ago, which is way older than Toba.
That's a huge the difference between 74,000 and 1 million is almost 1 million.
Yeah, it's
quite a lot. Yeah.
Humanity has been around for so long, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at like worldwide diversity, you can see that there are more ways that you can understand like how we had our different breeding pairs and stuff, or breeding sort of stuff in there. And it is that the overall theory that really works with this, which is the out of Africa theory. Mm-hmm. So like what happens is we have a pretty well-established timeline of humanity where humans first evolved. The first biological humans showed up in modern day.
As we've discussed, we came from sexy apes, right? The sexy ape theory. Apes were so sexy that they kept evolving sexier and sexier into humans.
Yeah. So we evolved roughly in what would be modern day Kenya, or sort of that kind of region in the African continent. And we then had these periods of leaving, of populations that would then leave Africa and go to different parts of the world. And you can see, like, as those sort of voyages happen out, like, not like literal voyages, we're talking about like generations of people like moving out. You can see the diversity, the genetic diversity start to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And this explains why humans are not that genetically diverse compared to a lot of other animals. Because a lot of the world's population is made up of people who are related to these like small branches that then went off and kind of built like bred this whole population from a pretty small number. This is why, if you look at worldwide genetic diversity, Africa, like Africans, have like the most diverse like genomes of all humans. While Europeans all have a pretty narrow in comparison. So yeah, so the idea of like there being a bottleneck from Toba is actually like a rough population estimate from an older model and doesn't really reflect today. Even papers that explored there being a late Pleistocene bottleneck that comes from Toba more blame the volcanic winter than the actual explosion. And put it as like not happening over a period of like a day, but over like multiple years, like decades.
Sure. Of
like just like failed crops and starvation and stuff.
Yeah.
And to kind of bring things back to like to Zucky here, humans by 74,000 years ago had already spread to multiple regions, parts of Africa and into Asia, and there was like a sort of network of surviving populations rather than secret bunkers or cities based on the pattern of our genetics and stuff like that. So it was never like a reset. So the places that we have found that did survive and are discussed as like potential bunkers are not really bunkers. They're like shallow rock shelters that had like hearths and tools and animal remains. So it's not like a sort of like, fallout vault or anything like that.
Right. It's nothing like that.
Yeah. And as we've seen, like there was like deep cave occupation in human prehistory, but it's scattered and it's not on a large scale. There's no like layer of like bunker use that we can see tied to the Toba ash horizon that would have fit the arc theory. So the thing that, and when it comes to like our genetics changing after that point, genetic drift and the founder effect describes the sort of random changes in gene frequency that show up when there's a small subset of the population. So you can see the genes change just based on that. And when individuals live or die, it's largely based on luck in the environment, not like biological superiority or whether or not you eat bananas.
Tristan, I'm kind of stuck on this phrase that you've said, because Toba Ash Horizon does sound like the name of a AAA video game that would be sweeping the Game Awards.
Yeah,
Toba Ash Horizon. It's the first in the Toba series.
Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty good name. If anyone wants to get out there. Anyway, any video game people out there?
If you want to make a video game called Toba: Ash Horizon, just cut us a little check and it's yours.
So all it's saying is that like there's no sign that like the genetics that we see change after the Toba eruption are linked to any kind of like actual artificial selection, because we have DNA of people before the eruption, and we just see the more that stuff that looks like, regular genetic drift, not like anything you'd see from like, because we've also studied how
genetic
artificial
drift
selection
is also a good video game name.
Genetic drift is, yeah. That should be a Deus Ex game. Deus Ex genetic drift.
That's good.
Yeah.
You keep saying things that just make me want to play a video game that doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's something pretty good. Yeah, but like, so like when things are artificially selected and we see that kind of change in the DNA, we can see that genetically, and it's different from natural evolution, and we don't see that. So then we're like, okay, so then how did people survive, the Toba catastrophe?
Yeah.
And there's a really great site where we can see how Toba affected the daily lives of people in this period that kind of explains what happened.
Okay.
So it's in northwest Ethiopia. It's a place called Shinfa Metema 1. And
okay,
another good video game name.
Great.
And you can see tiny volcanic glass shards in the sediment there that match the Toba eruption. So people were living there while the Toba eruption was happening. We have like you can see evidence that like volcanic ash was landing while they were living there.
Yeah, Shinfa Metema 1 is like it's like a JRPG, I think.
Yeah.
That's one that's like you're going to be sucked in it for it's going to be hard to get past once you're past the first 50 hours, then the game really flies.
Shinfa Metema, yeah. Shinfa Metema 1. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But what do we also find at this site at the time when everyone was supposed to be dying? We see stone arrowheads, the oldest known arrowheads in the world, which showed that they already had ranged hunting technology. We see cut-marked bones from various animals and evidence of controlled fire, which indicates they had an active cooking, active hunting, and a flexible foraging society that succeeded in a highly seasonal dry environment. And it fits this kind of idea we have of humanity where what's called the blue highway picture, where
another good one, Tristan.
Blue highways, yeah.
Blue highways. That's
So,
a good one too.
Yeah.
That's like a zen. That's a game you zen out to. It's just got great music.
It's a puzzle
very
game.
light controls. Yeah, maybe a puzzle game. Maybe like one of those like a what's it called? Tiny Wings, where it's just simple controls, zen music, very chill. I love it.
PlayStation exclusive.
Maybe it's on your phone.
Yeah. So what the blue highway stick shows is that like humans adapted by moving to rivers and coasts, and you can see that they changed their tools and they changed their diet, and so it seems like that, like the thing that made humans survive the Toba eruption was the same thing that helped us avoid the Malthusian collapse today, which was that humans are really good at flexible behaviors and mobility. We can move around and we're very adaptable to our environment. So what we see is that a lot of these places that wound up like suffering, like having their biosphere suffer because of the Toba eruption, were able to just find new food to forage, find new places to go and new ways to live, and they adapted, which
awesome.
Yeah, that shows like a lot of things. So I think that we're gonna have to call it there. We've got a lot more. We've got actually
your call.
You know what? I think that we don't have quite enough for another episode, so I'm gonna.
Okay, we can power through. I will say, I've changed my mind now. Blue highways. Now that you've explained that it's referring to rivers and coasts and things like that, I do think Blue Highways would be the name of a city builder game, but for fish. You're a fish. You're a fish, and you're building a city under the water.
This is competing with that game where it's a city builder, but you're beavers.
Is there one of those?
Yeah. It's called like Timberborn or something like that, and it's like you're all beavers, and water flow management is like a big part of the game because you're like building dams and stuff.
Man, should have called it Blue Highways.
Yeah, Blue Highways. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. The next little bit we have is to talk about the genetic upgrades. So the claim is that after the catastrophe, our DNA was upgraded.
Cool.
And they use this to explain the so-called missing link, which is a classic. So we've
talked about the missing link before, right?
I don't know. Probably though.
Maybe we haven't.
But we went from, quote, munching bananas in caves to building civilization overnight because the survivors were genetically modified to be smarter and obedient workers. This part is the funniest one to me because humans, 75,000 years ago, were already making art.
Yeah.
We have evidence of them making art with ochre, and we already see evidence of specialized tools, long-distance trade networks. So not munching bananas in caves. We already had a
Hey, to be fair, you can still eat bananas in caves if you want to and make art. Sometimes I start the morning by eating a banana for breakfast, and then I go and write a couple, do some research. They don't negate each other. We could, maybe
every morning you eat your banana and you get your ochre and you draw things on the walls.
You go to your cave, you eat your banana as a part of your morning ritual, and then you make art. And that's what it's like to be human.
It's very, we've been doing that for a lot longer than we've been doing whatever this fucking thing is.
Yeah.
So we already see signs that like this civilization wasn't doing nothing. They were doing art. They had tools. They were doing long distance like trade. So we were already doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
At the Blombos Cave in South Africa, which is about 75 to 100,000 years old, we have engraved ochre pieces. They use them in symbolic practice, including that shows that they had abstract thinking and culture of various kinds. We don't really know details. We just know that culture existed because of the pieces they have.
You did write cultural behavior in our notions document, and I can't remember if I brought this up before, but it always reminds me that you are Canadian because
I wrote it with a U.
Because you wrote it with a U, and I'm in America, and so anytime that you do that, whether it's the word color or behavior or whatever, it shows as a big red underline for me, telling me that it's misspelled. And I'm like, it's not my fault. I didn't do it.
Man. Yeah. But yeah, ochre was used as a fine tool retouch. It implies that there was crafting and all sorts of stuff at the site. So we also see a similar thing at Olegasali in Kenya, where we see pigments and complex tools. Long distance sourcing of obsidian, volcanic glass.
Yeah, we love obsidian on this show.
Yeah, so we see signs of trade and social networks long predating the Toba eruption. So we were already a fairly sophisticated civilization before this all happened.
Absolutely.
So the myth, and this is the part that I found very, very funny. So the Toba eruption happened 73,000 or basically between 73.7 and 73.9 thousand years ago.
Okay.
And one of the things Ancient Aliens said is that we were genetically upgraded and then seeded the world with all of our triangle rocks.
Yeah.
But the the earliest cities that fit the model of not being the inferior genetic whatevers that they were talking about can be traced back to as far back as 6,000 years ago. So there's quite a gap of about 68,000 years between when the Toba eruption happened and when civilization happened.
We were booting up as a species, okay? We got this new DNA injected into us from our alien overlords, and it
just
took
takes
us
a few thousand generations to work it out.
It took a while to figure it out. We were so used to our shovel hands. Or we didn't have shovel. Now I'm getting confused. We thought we were going to have shovel hands and then we didn't. And it was a whole thing. And it just took a long time to break that out of our system.
It's a rejected Tim Burton movie concept.
Yeah.
Edward Shovelhands.
Edward Shovelhands.
They couldn't make as many good things happen. And also
no useful, not as many social skills like becoming a barber or anything. You could be a gardener. Oh, that'd be sweet. True. Yeah.
Someone we'll probably have to get a different lead. He's kind of shitty now. Someone get Tim Burton. It would be a
Timothy Chalamet. Yeah, it would
get Timothy Chalamet and Tim Burton on the phone. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Also, there's no sign of there being a civilizational leap after Toba. We see gradual regional based changes that slowly spread over time, not the sort of punctuated change that we expect. And on the missing link thing, that I'm oh, come on. So missing link is an old term that comes from the 19th century that had this idea of the great chain of being, which imagine this was you've probably seen the image of the monkey turning into the man, right?
Yes.
That we directly evolved, you have babies long enough that you end up with this path. It's from ape to human. While modern biology sees a branching tree with what we instead of looking for missing links, we look for last common ancestors. Mm-hmm. And there are many transitional hominids, but in the last few million years that branch us to apes. There's no gap around 74,000 years ago. And I threw in the famous missing link clip from Futurama to kind of give you the concept. Have you seen this or no?
I don't remember. I've watched all of Futurama, but that was back when I was in college. And I'm an old man, so let me hit play. Let me see if this works.
Oh! If your elitist East Coast evolution is real, why has no one found the missing link between modern humans and ancient apes?
We did find it. It's called Homo erectus.
Then you have proven my case, sir. For no one has found the link between apes and this Homo erectus.
Yes, they have. It's called Homo habilis.
Aha! But no one has found the missing link between ape and the so-called Homo habilis.
Yes, they have. It's called Australopithecus africanus.
Oh, I've got you now. Fair enough. But where, then, is the missing link between apes and this Darwinius Masali? Answer me that, Professor.
Yeah.
Classic.
Classic.
Yeah. So speaking of a missing link between two sections, how would you like an ad break right now?
Has anyone ever found the missing link between part 1 of this show and part 2 of this show?
Yes, we have. It's called an ad break.
Oh, with products and services. I like those. Let's do one of those.
We are Charlie Kirk.
Kirk!
It'll work. It'll work. It'll work.
It'll work.
Okay.
It'll work.
So
We don't like Charlie Kirk. I can't stress that enough.
yeah, I think that I don't think there's anybody who likes Charlie Kirk except for the person who made that song who sings it regularly. Okay, so then who is doing this? I like looked into like who are the major pushers of the Toba upgrade theory, and there were a couple people who unfortunately we could not cover because they are already friends of the show, like described by himself, described by others as the real life Indiana Jones. David Childress.
Nice.
This seems like it's a very ancient aliens focused one that they just took like the Toba catastrophe theory and threw their thing on it. But the idea very much fits the work of a person named Helena Blavatsky, who is definitely a person I keep threatening to make an episode about because she comes up constantly.
Do it, but not and not without me. Only do it with me. Don't do it without me.
Yeah. There is, if you are impatient, there is a really great Behind the Bastards on her. That's pretty good. But Helena Blavatsky.
People say we're like that show, but less good.
You know what? I have been called in literally every project I do, like Robert Evans, but less good. So I that has just followed me my entire career at this point.
I am totally fine with someone saying anything that I do is like, oh, you're just like this person or this thing that's very good, but you're not as good as them. I'm like, hey, you're making the comparison. That's fine with me. That
I am
makes
happy.
me feel good regardless.
Yeah, I'm content being Diet Robert Evans.
I'm content being American H Bomber guy. So that's
pretty,
fine with me.
That's a pretty high praise, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Helena Blavatsky founded a philosophy called Theosophy, which has this belief that there are 5, quote, root races. I really get into this. So in the idea is that there's like throughout history, there have been these races of humanity that then were ended by some kind of cataclysm with the idea that they clear the stage for the next great civilization. So you had like Lemuria, you had Atlanteans, and then you had the Aryans. Let's not think too much about what that inspired. The Lemurians were said to be destroyed, though, by something called a subterranean fire and volcanic action. So their land sank, while the later races inherited a spiritual higher role. She links the Aryan people as the last ones to the more advanced and most spiritual stock. And treats surviving primitive groups of remnants of earlier inferior races, embedding a hierarchy that later fed occultism, specifically the kind of occultism that Nazis like.
What? First time hearing of this.
So it probably won't surprise you that we're veering into the sad-making territory of this episode. Yeah.
I had that button locked and loaded.
We carry the flame.
Fight for the gospel. We honor his name.
You're way better at it because I think you have experience singing these kind of like, these Christian torch songs.
Oh, I was in worship band, baby.
Yeah.
I played guitar and bass, and I sang. But they didn't give me a microphone, not because I wasn't good. They kept wanting to give me a microphone. And I said, no, it's not about me. It's about the Lord. And that's a true story.
I sang competitively for a number of years. I just did it in musical theater, not in worship music. And that is very much of the worship music variety. So yeah, what kind of shitty politics is this whole thing doing if it wasn't extremely obvious through the entire episode? The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of the lifeboat ethic, which is this the idea that that the during these catastrophes that they made the bunkers and that's how they survived, which is not a thing that is not really how people survive disasters. So but tech elites are obsessed with this idea. That's why they're building all those, like, that's why Zuck is building that giant bunker. It's called
if only Charlie Kirk had one, it would be a Bunkirk. Is that anything?
Oh,
no, not Dunkirk, not Dunkirk, Nolan, not Dunkirk. I said Bunkirk.
We'll have you on next week. God damn it. I can't believe that now the joke has landed. Now you got something.
All right.
So Douglas Rushkoff wrote about this, and it was called The Mindset, this belief that with enough capital, data, and hardware, that they could personally exit the world. So, like, there's a lot of, like, you know, tech billionaires who are destabilizing our democracy, countries, even biology, and rather than fix them, their goal is to just make enough money that they can just nope out and get in a bunker and wait for the world to burn. So Rushkoff had been hired by billionaires who wanted advice on not avoiding catastrophe, but on securing the guards, bunkers, and escape routes for the event, which is any number of apocalyptic events they think about.
Oh man, you remember that show? I think it was on like NBC or something. It was called The Event. Have we talked about this before?
No, I only have vague memories of this, though.
It was like a show where a plane disappeared. Oh my god, hold on, wait, hold on, what the fuck? This actually relates so much to this episode. It was like a plane disappeared for a couple seconds out of nowhere and was like teleported somewhere else. And it turned out that there were aliens who have been living on Earth whose DNA was only different from humans by like 1%. So they looked human, but they were aliens, and I don't know if they had special powers or anything like that, but they had like infiltrated parts of the government and just whatnot, and were living among everyone. But
yeah, you're actually not too far off. That seems like it's actually explicitly inspired by this theory. So
that's wild.
Yeah. That kind of fits this whole season, but
any event heads out there? Anyone really into the event when it happened? Let me know.
My EV.
I think it was supposed to be like the new Lost or the new Heroes.
And then it ended poorly. I don't know.
It wanted to be one of those shows that people watched religiously and had podcasts about and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. So like basically they are trying to survive themselves instead of asking whether their own business models might be creating the crisis they're trying to escape. So it's like they believe that any risks can be. You might wonder, hey, why are all the tech billionaires so worried about like rogue AI stuff? It might be because of this, because they keep thinking that apocalypses that they need to escape are always around the corner.
Then fucking stop making the AI thing. Like, I'm so sorry if you're scared of
it's such a fucking
AI. Stop making it then.
Yeah, it's such a weird logic pretzel, that one, because it's like AI, if it gets too powerful, will be able to do all of these things that sound like literal apologia for like literally apologetics. Like the AI will be able to make a rock so large that it can't lift it or something. But then like the AIs they're going to destroy us all. But at the same time, if we don't make the AI, then another country, probably the Chinese, will make their own AI and they will out AI us and win. And so therefore we need to make it first, and then we need to make the good one that avoids the bad thing so that we can beat the people over in Chinesia from the thing. And I mean, as far as I've seen, the AI race is a bunch of Western companies spend atrocious amounts of power and like resources to train these models, and then a random dude in China will be like, actually, I figured out how to make something just as powerful for like on a fucking PlayStation 4, and repeat the cycle forever.
Maybe I can just ask AI to write me a season 2 of the event to try and tell me how it was supposed to end.
I need to know how it ends.
I need to know what the event was.
So yeah, like this is part of their thing. And so the Toba, like the Toba story is kind of like a moral template for their idea of like an apocalypse that then they can hide away from, and a natural mass die-off that gets rid of all the people that they think are not good enough to, be around. It's literally like abandonment by design. It's the mindset over and over again. We saw this also. It also is in other things, like the ideology that's becoming more and more relevant in a really terrible way, eco-fascism. So if you remember during COVID, not that we're out of COVID, we're still technically in a pandemic.
Yeah.
But the whole like humans are the virus, nature is healing stuff.
Yeah. They did that in Avengers as well, remember? I don't know if you care about the Avengers movie. In Endgame, after like 5 years after everyone was snapped away by Thanos, they were just sort of like, yeah, but there are whales in the Hudson?
Maybe.
Is that possible? I don't know. They're basically saying the world is healing.
Gross. Very gross. So the thing, though, is that the humans are the virus talk in the way about like climate disasters have led to like a new ideology, or a sort of growing ideology called eco-fascism, which is the idea that instead of looking to like who is actually causing environmental damage, i.e. like, the Western world, the highly industrialized societies, instead they hide that and talk about these fantasies about thinning out surplus people, which they almost always mean brown people. And then Ancient Aliens comes in and says that Toba was about culling or thinning the humanity, which very much echoes this frame, And so, and the Earth is healing, humans are the virus meme that got big in 2020 also kind of fits that model of thinking. That there's just like getting rid of people, as COVID-19 fucking killed millions of people, like is somehow good for the planet, and that we are like some kind of disease. We are part of it. We are part of this.
We're part
as
of the
Marion
planet.
Pippin said, we're part of this world. We just need to be better things on it.
Look, we keep bringing it up, but like, it's really just like the systems that we have are bad. There are ways of surviving, not just surviving, but there are ways of thriving on this world that don't involve destroying it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, this sort of like misanthropy that kind of comes out of the pandemic, it comes out of like being kind of disenchanted with politics, and also leads to like, the like don't have kids thing. It's all together like this idea that humans are the problem, but that is just abstracting billions of people to the human species, which ignores the idea that environmental damage is very unequal based on country, race, class. That the humans are the problem. It makes it easier to slide the idea that then we need to have fewer humans as the solution. And every time you think that fewer humans is the solution to the problems of the world, your policy proposals get really fucked up. So, they involve killing lots of people, or like, we've never had an awesome population control scheme that's really worked. So there's that. And then
Look,
on top,
I propose, and I might be the first one to do this, but I propose eating homeless people. Was that the plot of that one satire piece?
It was eating the Irish.
Eating the
Irish babies, I think.
Irish babies.
A modest proposal.
Modest proposal. That's what it was. Thank you. I proposed doing that, and I'm the first person to think
it was a bit. Modest proposal was a joke, right?
It was satire. It was satire. It is like the only thing that it's hard because no one knows what satire is anymore. But
unfortunately, the right have gone so insane that now they are indistinguishable from things that we were satirizing like a year ago. Yeah.
But it genuinely was satire. It's like the one thing you can point to that everyone agrees was satire.
Yeah. The thing, though, is that eco-fascism sort of fits into this idea that, like, if you accept climate change, if you accept that we are dealing with lots of problems and that, like, the world is going, and you blame overpopulation, then they will tie overpopulation to the fascist call for racialized violence. Like, if there's too many people, we got to make sure that the people who survive are the white people. And it has inspired mass shooters, and it has been mixed in with like white nationalism and taken a sort of environmental aspect that blames basically non-white migrants, mostly, climate refugees escaping the effects of climate change, as the problem for environmental panic, and that they're like this surplus population that causes the problem, when it's really like the wealthy lifestyles and high consumption. It does remind me, I don't know if this is going to sound really, really fucking dated in a few months because of because we're in World War III. But like one of the most interesting talking points right now is that Donald Trump's talking about trying to steal Greenland from Denmark, and that we need to have it, and that it's about Arctic sovereignty.
You say we. You're Canadian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to be the 51st state.
You're not going to be
so
a part of it, all right? That's just for me. And
I'll be the 51st state, so I guess I can get it. But yeah, the thing is that one of the interesting things that I think is kind of funny to show about how this whole thing's going is that Donald Trump's, so with the Arctic, there's a whole thing where there is increased interest in the Arctic and Arctic territory, but Donald Trump also is president on the backs of straight up non-nuanced climate denial.
Yeah.
That climate change isn't happening.
No, yeah.
But the whole thing is that the reason that the Arctic is becoming a thing is because higher temperatures mean that the Arctic is becoming, one, more hospitable, but two, more navigable via boat. And so, like, Greenland is becoming more strategically important as the Arctic becomes more of a shipping route and more like international trade goes through Arctic waters. Plus, there's evidence of there being oil underneath in the Arctic Ocean. And so there's also a desire to try and see if they can get in on that too. So all of that is to say, like, but the thing is, Trump can't say that because to admit all these things would be to admit to his followers that climate change exists. So he makes all of these weird, nonsensical claims because the real reason that he wants the U.S. to have Greenland isn't one that he can publicly say because it's based on a fact that he's actively trying to ignore.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of climate change, the richest 10% of people are responsible for about half of all global consumption-based CO2 emissions.
Yes.
And the richest 1% of humanity alone emits more than the poorest half of humanity combined.
I want to
we should probably start there.
I've already said that my father-in-law doesn't listen to this podcast, but he's tried to in the past. And I said it's because he couldn't figure out his podcast player. And that's only partly true. The other part is he did try to listen to an episode of ours, but couldn't make it past the cold open because we just talked for too long. So fair criticism, I suppose.
Yeah, this is a chunky boy.
But I will say, no, I just mean he couldn't get to the part where we introduced ourselves because we talked for too long about nothing. But I do say, if he's somehow made it this far into an episode, I do want to point your attention to the things that Tristan just said, because with peace and love, he does get on us like anyone when like we're doing dishes, and he's like, you're using too much water while you're washing these dishes. And it's like, he'll even say things like, there's not going to be any water left when you're, for your kids. And it's like, your heart's in the right place, my man, but it's really not individual use when it comes to us, like people just washing our dishes. It's going to be about the very wealthy people and the giant corporations. It's going to be those people using up, water and creating pollution and all of that stuff. Us washing our dishes for a couple seconds longer than you would wash it, I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah. I will also just throw it out there because I also know that people are having a conversation about a different thing in water consumption, is that everybody is talking about it in an extraordinarily stupid fashion because when people are like, oh, this uses like 10,000, all right, there's two things to say. One, if you are a person who, one of your major arguments against, say, a new matrix multiplication piece of software that is affecting our economy, that jeans, like denim, is a significant consumer of water. That is like compared to data centers is still and also water is not a zero-sum resource. That's not how water works. Water is the water that is used in data centers, for example, it's more about capacity and like availability in different areas, because it's not like they obliterate the water from the universe. They put it back. It goes back into the water cycle. But yeah,
there are much bigger things to complain about, I feel.
Yes.
With data centers and where they're building them and what that means for the locals.
Yeah.
and
Powering
things
them
like
is
that.
more of the issue than the water thing. Anyways, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But
Yeah.
there's a really good Hank Green video about it. So the last thing, we're all getting into eugenics again. So I don't know if you've heard about long-termism, but man, is it a stupid idea.
Okay, tell me about it. It's also the worst name for a video game we've had so far.
Yeah, it's true.
That's truly terrible.
The sort of genetic upgrade idea and the idea that the elites survived fits into the idea of long-termism, which is sometimes called elite pronatalism, which is the idea that, and I'll tell you this is an extremely dumb argument. So warning, very dumb argument ahead. So long-termism holds this idea that people in the future matter morally the exact same as people who are alive today.
Okay.
And that like actions that we do today that might kill a bunch of people today, but make life better and make there be more people like 10,000 years from now is a moral priority.
That doesn't sound like they matter just as much then, does it? If you're saying we need to sacrifice people's lives right now to better in the future, that actually sounds like they're saying that people in the future matter more.
Well, what they're saying is like, 1,000 people die today so that 10,000 people will be saved and will live, then that's like worth it. And they use like trillions of people, especially when they get into stuff like digital people, space colonization, computer simulations. Like the amount of stuff that you need to do then is like we have to sacrifice so much in today to do these like hypothetical people based on whatever sci-fi scenario they want to get into. So like, for example, like we need to have more technology for like, one of the ways you would say that technology is good is because it makes people's lives better and it makes us like, have a better standard of living. But they would argue that you need to increase all these technologies because that means creating more people, which means that you are like doing a more moral good. It's like weird stuff like that.
I see.
So, and part of it is that they believe that in something called elite pronatalism, which is that high IQ populations, which they of course mean that the rich in their minds, are facing democratic collapse. Like basically the plot of Idiocracy.
Okay.
They believe that, but for real. So they're like, smart people need to have more children because the low IQ people are reproducing too fast and we're creating a dumber society as a result, which isn't how intelligence works. IQ is not even a good metric of that. And
gross.
Results in stuff like Elon Musk, who gave a woman a horse in order to have a baby with her or something. He keeps having new kids like every other day.
He just keeps having new kids. And I feel like they all hate him, which is a delight to me.
He has, what's it called? The one that the password kid is, he likes him, but also he's a toddler. So shit.
Yeah, they won't last.
Toddlers like everybody. So yeah, this sucks.
Yes.
Sam Bankman-Fried was like a big person in this and all that kind of stuff. So here's the thing I want to talk about to get away from all these ideas, because all of these people are wrong about not only how humans factor into catastrophes and disasters, but also are not, like, it's not a way to succeed. So humans in disasters, as we have seen every time over and over again, and we kind of saw with the Blue Highways idea, is that we overwhelmingly tend towards mutual aid and cooperation.
Hell yeah.
The Mad Max scenario doesn't really happen. So Shinfa Metema, without a number, which is actually like the fourth in the series,
it's so confusing.
shows that we survive. Our species succeeds and thrives because we're flexible, we're networked, and we adapt.
Yes.
Now and during disasters, we've had research from people like the Disaster Research Center that show that most people respond to catastrophe with altruism, group solidarity, and spontaneous organizing. The whole idea of mass panic and predatory violence is usually the exception rather than the rule. And that people volunteer, they share their resources, and they form new support networks while violent crime often drops immediately after a major disaster. Some famous cases, like the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the 1917 Halifax explosion, the Mexico City in 1985, 9/11, and Hurricane Katrina show spontaneous soup kitchens, neighborhood brigades, and mutual aid hubs arising faster and often working more efficiently than the former top-down responses. The reason why, like, the Mad Max myth persists is because of media narratives. And state authorities who often want to exaggerate looting, chaos, and social breakdown to justify militarized response and disaster capitalism, and try to disempower these mutual aid networks that tend to be working better than what the state's providing, which, as a anarcho-communist myself, is like, why is it that every time we find ways to organize ourselves that don't involve the state giving us permission to live, that seem to work better in some cases, the state needs to show up to fuck us up?
Yes. Like, on that note, I will say, watching, because again, we're recording this in January 2026, watching the too many and horrible videos of ICE officers, doing horrible things to people. And then a couple minutes into these videos, you start hearing this sort of like what almost is like a cinematic background sound, like soundtrack, a score of whistles from the community, of people who realize what's going on and all gather together to shame these people, to shame these ICE officers, these insects, really, in what they're doing. And you start seeing how people who are like being harassed by them start feeling more confident, and like, because the community shows up to help them, it's to get rid of these ICE officers. And so, like, there's a little bit of there's something, obviously it shouldn't be happening in the first place. Like, ICE shouldn't exist, period. But hearing all of these, the whistles and the community of people gathering around to help each other out and fend off these despicable weasels, it gives me a little bit of hope, I think.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just gonna put it out there. It's a bit of a long shot, but if you're listening to this podcast and you're in ICE, quit. I would say quit or stop listening
Please
to the
quit.
podcast. That's one of those two. I'd say do those two.
Yeah.
One of those two. And, maybe get in touch with your soul, because you have not been writing to them lately. So the thing is, because of like Hobbesian philosophy, which is like this idea, this like philosophy that humans are naturally selfish and that they need, like, his book, The Leviathan, claims that humans are selfish, brutal, will do whatever to serve themselves. And so they need the state to kind of force them to be good, has led to a lot of assumptions that humans are, bad, and that people expect selfishness, but observed behavior in disaster is usually quite the opposite. And Shinfa Metema 1, great game.
Great game.
Yeah.
Love it. The
Nakamoto knocked it out of the park.
I think the remake was even better.
Yeah. The archaeological layers show that they survived the Toba eruption by adapting, by changing their diets to move towards fish as the water holes shrank. They made intensive use of seasonal rivers and pools. They controlled fire, made complex toolkits that they maintained, and they made early bow and arrow tech around that time to enable cooperative hunting. The key pattern is coordinated use of shared ecological nodes, rivers, pools, and predictable resources over long periods. That implies stable routines, information sharing, and trust within and between these groups, not lone survivalists who were scraping by in isolation. So one example is the obsidian handshake. In many Pleistocene civilizations, stone materials like obsidian and chert are found tens or hundreds of kilometers away from their sources, which implies exchange networks, travel through territory, and that maintained multiple groups rather than single bands wandering around. So there's a lot of cooperation going on. Long distance material flow, you can see, or you can interpret it as a proxy for trust. In face-to-face groups, information, they would share genes, which means they met up and they be fucking. and tools moving through overlapping social networks that buffer local shocks. So in Toba area, East Africa, that meant broad diets, river corridor mobility, fit a model of networked resilience rather than a collapse. So today, let's try and do our own blue highway or our own obsidian handshake.
Yes.
By making
Obsidian handshake also could be a good game.
video game. Yeah. That's a card game.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. Obsidian handshake. Oh, that's good.
Because the anarcho-communist in me needs to put it out there that that the way that we will survive is by creating a dense overlapping mutual aid network that can root around local failure. So find what your water holes are, your hubs, union halls, religious spaces, libraries, community fridges, maker spaces, any places that people already turn to when in crisis, and build relationships across these before disaster through shared projects, training, and events so that the paths of communication and trust are already in place.
This is so, you're hitting me at exactly the right moment. Emily was just talking to me about there's a Roanoke makerspace, and she was like, maybe that's something we do for me, just to have a hobby outside of being a dad and podcast. Basically, she wants me to have a hobby, and I agree, that isn't monetized.
Yeah.
And I agree, and that would be fun to do and meet new friends and learn about just making stuff, being hands-on, being more of a dad, maybe woodworking. I don't know. A makerspace just sounds fun, and so I think you're hitting me at exactly the right time. I think I now need to look into this more.
If some further advice is that on top of finding rivers and nodes and building connections, you have to make redundant trust networks. These can't just be things you turn to in crisis. You need small, repeated exchanges. So things like tool libraries, skill shares, but not that Skillshare, ride shares, childcare swaps, community gardens.
Yeah.
You need to circulate these experiences, these services, these goods in order to build a reputational memory. Like I am involved with a bunch of stuff, a few things in London. It depends upon the time of year and my how much the kid helps with or hurts. But one of the things that one of the groups that we're involved with does is a really free market every few months. And the really free market, I mean, it was wonderful to be able to give an actual, like, almost crying mom just like a bag of diapers that we had left over. But like,
hell yeah.
But like, the bigger thing is just that you go to those places where those are happening, and there's people talking to each other and swapping stories and like building things up that way. And that's what that's about.
Absolutely.
So run low stakes mutual aid drills, pop up soup kitchens. If you have a local, what's it called? You have a local chapter of Food Not Bombs. That's a really good place to go. Check-ins during storms. This is actually a thing that we decentralized phone trees or mesh network experiments. I'm trying to get a mesh network thing for my house. But one example is that we had this kind of like community thing, and I put together like a sort of WhatsApp group of people who are on our street. And even though nobody posts in it very often, every week I post the weather, the garbage day pickup, and whether it's garbage or recycling. And every week I post that, and when people have things they want to give away, when people have missing pets, that kind of stuff, people post in there and they help each other out. And I think that's awesome. And I also have like I have a group text of a bunch of like my kids' friends' parents to keep in touch.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things. I think that we lost a lot of this because of the pandemic, that we need to start actively rebuilding. It's my New Year's resolution.
This, man. Yeah.
So and also you have to keep in mind that you're not going to solve the world's problems with charities. You're going to have to build autonomous things, structures that have horizontality and participatorily, which means they have to be top-down organizations, and they have to be ones that you can participate in like voluntarily. So you decide together how to allocate your food, your labor, and your care. So these are for, there's a lot of things you can do, like urban rural pairings, right? Like food from the farms goes in, services and finished goods from the city, that kind of trade. Watershed coalitions, diaspora ties, because like a lot of diaspora immigrant communities have these kind of like mutual aid networks. Because they need to be overlapping and they need to be autonomous, because if any of these fail, if any of these become corrupted, if any of these like one of the common things that I say when I don't think that government should exist is they're like, well, what stops like a person from declaring themselves dictator? And it's the fact that like everybody is so interconnected with each other that like nobody would kind of emerge from that system without being kind of tamped down. So like do that. Go read The Conquest of Bread. Just become an anarchist, everybody. That's my advice.
Hey, I'm not going to be here as discussed for a couple of months, but I want someone write in to the Q&A form or email us, so that we have it on our backlog. Ask me specifically. And if you think someone else is going to do this and you don't have to do this, wrong. You do this right now. Someone email or put on our Q&A thing that we asking me how or if I've signed up for my local makerspace yet. That gives me a couple months to figure this out. And you're holding me accountable to do that. Yep. All right. And again, if you think, oh, some other listener is going to do that, I don't have to. Wrong. You do it right now. Yep. And a great place. And you can find all that information of where you can send that Q&A in at a very simple website. It's called probsnotaliens.com.
We did it. We got to the end of this fucking gigantic episode.
To the end of
no
the episode.
No two-parter for us.
You can follow us.
Your baby is responsible for this long episode.
That's true. You can follow us at Probs Not Aliens on Blue Sky. Tristan, you do things outside of this podcast. What is that? What is that like?
That's a good question because, I'm quitting my job. I quit my job and I'm leaving on the 10th. So actually like 3 weeks from today. And I am going to be running, I'm going to be running Step Back. We're going to be making videos about history and why it's important and how it shapes, how you can't understand the world today without knowing where it came from. Ooh, I should remember that one.
That was good.
But I'm going to be trying to write articles. There's going to be a newsletter. There's going to be a bunch of stuff involved. So just hang tight to this space. Scott, if I wanted to watch the video that you got blackout drunk for and missed a recording of this podcast because of it, where would I go?
Oh, man. Just so you know, I sent that footage to my editor, one of my editors, and he said I recorded 2 hours, and he said at the hour mark, it becomes incomprehensible.
Oh, no.
So I will have to re-record some stuff, but that's a video I am actively doing where I'm responding to Ben Shapiro's.
I only do two things: videos you made 10 years ago and videos you haven't made yet.
Yes, I'm responding to Ben Shapiro's terrible Wake Up Dead Man review, and I got very drunk. That's on my YouTube channel, or will be on my YouTube channel called NerdSync, NERDSYNC. Like I said, I have to film the second half of it again, but sober, so my editor can make a video that makes sense. Go check it out. Hopefully I can do that before baby arrives, which will be any day now. You can follow this show and support the show. Hey, if you're like, wow, Scott's becoming a dad for the first time, how can I maybe financially support him so that he can go on, paternity leave and not worry about bills? Because my wife has maternity leave, but it only it's only 1 month paid and 2 months unpaid. So that's fun. You can support this show at patreon.com/probsnotaliens or on nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. You get episodes early, some bonus content, and again, you support this show, not just me, but Tristan as well. The editors who edit this show, you support this whole program. And
all the babies it provides. All the babies it creates.
And all the babies it provides. And if you don't have money, because times are tough, no worries. Or if you're already supporting us, another thing you can do to support the show is reviews. Reviews are free. Anyone can do them. Literally anyone can do them. If you think you can't make a review, you're wrong. You can. I believe in you. Don't doubt yourself. You can leave a review of this show on any podcast platform of your choosing. and it really helps, spread the word, make people know that it's good content. You can also tell your friends about this show. Are you having a child? Tell your child about this show. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I have our little child
first song,
in my arms.
Or their first song is going to be the fucking theme song to It's Probably Not Aliens.
It's going to be, for in order, the theme songs are Probably Not Aliens, then We Are Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, it's starting them off good.
It's gonna get, this baby's gonna have
This baby's
real
gonna be
mixed
weird.
signals.
This is going to be one weird baby.
And again, a link you can send, or a link where you can find everything we're talking about is probsnotaliens.com, which I will update with a new form so that you can send in corrections and Q&A messages. That's going to be a part of something that I do on paternity leave, I think. So I am technically going to be working during it. You can't stop me, Tristan.
Had Scott spray you with water, but you're 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah. Until... I was going to say until next time, but next time's going to be a while for me.
Until next time.
So I guess until next time.
I'm going to miss you, buddy.
For me. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss the listeners. I'll still text you a whole bunch. I'll send you baby pictures and whatnot.
You better.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, listeners. Gosh, I'm going to see you in so many months. My name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. We carry the flame.
Yeah, we fight for the gospel. We
honor his name.
Probably.
Probably.
We probably honor his name.